Okay, guys, sorry about that. On my first video, I worked a couple of problems on the front and gave you a little tip about number 4, but the back side of my worksheet was missing these problems, so I had to print them really quick. So now these are a little bit different because this time you're not solving straight for density. This time you're going to be solving for something different. This is where you are going to have to use your magic triangle to help you with the algebra. So let's read this problem. And we're going to do that same thing. We're going to underline the number that we see in the unit. Soda has a volume of 560 milliliters, right? That's what we measure liquid volume in, milliliters. And then it's actually giving us the density. Notice that the density has grams per milliliter. It's got both units in it. So this would be our D in our formula. And then it says, what is the mass? So in this question, we're actually solving for the mass. So in our triangle, notice this, pay attention, don't miss this, cover up the M, and the formula tells you what to do. So if D and V are beside each other, you're going to multiply them. So your formula would look like this, M equals D times V. So then you use your numbers from your problem and just plug them right in your formula where they go. So we're going to plug in the density first, which is 3.2 grams per milliliter. Plug in your volume, which is 560 milliliters. And now you just have a very simple multiplication problem. So you know if you're multiplying, it doesn't matter which number you put in first. So I'm going to put in my two numbers, 3.2 times 560. Okay? And then most of the time when you're multiplying, you don't get those crazy looking decimal numbers. You get pretty normal looking whole numbers. And you can just write down the entire answer. If you look back at your problem, you've got 2 numbers in this measurement. You've got about three numbers in this measurement. But since this is a whole number without decimals, I'm just going to write the entire answer that I see on my calculator. I want you to pay attention to something about, sorry, I put that in the wrong spot. Pay attention to the units here. You are solving for mass, and you should know by now, after several quizzes, lots of notes, what do we measure mass in? We measure mass in grams. So here you have milliliters, which is on the bottom of this density unit, and you have milliliters from your volume unit, and because they're kind of set up like this in the problem, when you have one unit on top and one unit on the bottom, they cancel each other out, just like stuff in math. When you're trying to cancel with fractions, they cancel each other out and you're just left with grams. So whatever mass unit is in your density right here, that would be the unit that you use for your mass answer, right? And that makes sense, right? The problem has to make sense. Mass is measured in grams, so that makes sense. So let's work. We're going to skip down to 7. Number 6, guys, is just like number 5. So I want you to see on your own if you can do 6 by yourself, just like number 5. Okay, so look back at number 5 to help you with number 6. Number 7 has you solving for volume. So let's read number 7. Mass, you have soda with a mass of 1,500 grams. And the density is 2.9. Look at that derived unit again, grams per milliliter. What is the volume? So we're going to go back up here to our magic triangle. If we're asked to solve for volume, I'm covering up this V, and my magic triangle is telling me what to do. So to solve for volume, I actually have to write down my mass and divide by my density. So the formula would look like this. Volume equals M over D. And you know what those two things are because you've read the problem and underlined those numbers in units. So you know that your mass, and it tells you right here, it's the mass of 1,500 grams, and my density is 2.9 grams per milliliters. So now pay attention to something with this math, right? We're dividing again. This number has to go in first. Divided by 2.9. And I get 517, and then there's some decimals. So let's look back, right? Here I have about 4 numbers in my measurement. Here I have about 2. So it'd probably be safe to say that I could actually stop at the decimal. Look to the right, it's a 2. That means the 7 would stay the same in terms of rounding. We would not have to round up. So we could probably just stop at that decimal and say the answer is 517. But now pay attention. Very important. You're solving for volume. So your answer has to have a volume unit. Your only options are going to be milliliters or centimeters cubed. So look back at your density unit. Here you've got grams on top for mass and then grams on top in the density, and those guys cancel. And you're left with milliliters. And that makes sense because your volume could be measured in milliliters. It also kind of gives you some hints because it tells you it's soda. And since soda is a liquid, that makes sense, right? Totally makes sense that your soda is measured in milliliters, right? Last one, number 8, is exactly like number 7. So I want you right now to try to work number 8 just like number 7. If you have a question or you're unsure, you can send me a Google Hangout. You can send me a message. You can send me an email. You can wait until tomorrow or later today and watch the video of me going through all of the problems and check yourself, correct your work, make sure you have your answers right. And then you'll kind of be able to ask me questions. If you got something wrong, then you can ask me a question and I can help kind of work through any problems that you're having. But these are what your density problems are going to look like on tests and quizzes. Okay?